Welcome to episode 4 of Whole Lotta Glove. I have a very special guest, my good friend, Mr. Jack Wynkoop. Jack, this is going to be a weird one for me because obviously you're one of my very best friends. Throughout my career, you're probably one of, if not the most fun-loving and nice guys I've ever met.
I loved Kershaw, which is kind of, he's older than us, but like he just got into the big league so young that I feel like, we watched that Tennessee series where we walked him off twice in the same game. I don't think I pitched well in either game, by the way, but just being a part of that, and you hit was it a grand slam to win the second one? So that was probably like my favorite moment.
Proud to be partnering with Underdog Sports, my favorite place to play fantasy games. You got to check out Pick'em. It is so easy to play. Just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite player and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can go 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. Sounds like fun? Sign up with promo code COURT, C-O-U-R-T, to claim your free pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. I can't wait to see your interest.
Welcome to episode 4 of Whole Lotta Glove. I have a very special guest, my good friend, Mr. Jack Wynkoop. Jack, this is going to be a weird one for me because obviously you're one of my very best friends. Know a ton about you already, but we're going to learn more today. Tell everyone kind of what you've been up to. You stopped playing in 2021, what you're doing nowadays. You're clearly my best dressed guest so far. Probably should have gotten into something a little more comfortable.
Yeah, that's my bad on that. I had to come from work. Thanks for having me, G.
Yep.
Happy to be here. Question was about what I'm doing now.
Yeah, what you're up to, what's going on in life.
So, I guess hung it up in 2021. That was the year I got married. So my wife Jessica and I live here in Columbia. We have a daughter now, which is awesome. She'll be 1 next month. So this has been a crazy year. I feel like it's flown by. Professionally, I work in the wealth management space now. There was a big team that's been doing it forever in Columbia that kind of started talking to me as I was figuring out whether I wanted to keep playing or not. Kind of got excited about that next dream and have hit the ground running. So it's been a few years now and really enjoying it.
Yeah. So we're mainly going to talk baseball today. That's what the podcast is about. Okay. You're from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Give me a little bit about what your recruiting process was like. There's been somewhat of a pipeline from Virginia to the University of South Carolina. You think guys like Jackie Bradley, Eric Payne, TJ Costin, Ethan Carter, Jack Wynkoop, Patrick Harrington. What did you talk to any of those guys before ultimately deciding to come here, or was it just where you wanted to play?
Yeah, so watched Pat play a lot growing up. And he was on, I think, the same travel team as Jackie, the Richmond Braves. So kind of had always known who those guys were growing up. And then you didn't mention your old roommate, TJ Costin.
Yeah, I did. I said
you
TJ.
Did? You did? Oh, my bad. So TJ went to high school literally right next door to me at First Colonial. And if you were an athlete in Virginia Beach, you probably knew who TJ Costin was just because he was such a freak. And so as he went through the recruiting process, kind of learned a little bit more about South Carolina, and him and his dad took me down for a camp. And that was kind of my first introduction. But then kind of went through my sophomore year, and things kind of heated up from there. They won the national championship and hired Coach Myers, who was already recruiting me at Old Dominion. So he was probably the biggest kind of factor in there, just because, what he's done as a head coach, as a pitching coach, and you've been around him as a person. He's just a special dude. So when all of that kind of lined up, it was really hard to say no.
Yeah, and you had a great career at Cape Henry High School. Is that right?
Yep.
Ended up winning a state championship. I think I saw your senior year. You went 8-0 with like a .5 ERA. The nugget that I saw that I want to talk about is you pitched a complete game in the state championship and you scored the winning run. I had no idea you played another position in high school. I don't envision Jack Wynkoop being able to swing a baseball bat.
Come on, man.
Talk to me about the other positions you played and kind of your high school career at Cape Henry.
Yeah, so I was spoiled in high school. high school coach, his name was John Ingram, and he had, was like a Virginia high school baseball legend. From there, he retired, and Ryan Morris, who coached at VCU, ODU, a college coach coming out of college baseball, and took over our program. That was the year we won the state championship. So, and then following him was Tim Hummel, who played at Old Dominion, was an All-American, and played in the big leagues. So I had just great coaches, and we had some really good teams. I was a decent, I would say, high school position player. I played first and some outfield when I wasn't pitching. And, it was crazy. It was like the bottom of the seventh, 2 outs. I was on first base. Guy hits a just normal pop fly to right field. And I'm thinking, we're down by 1. So there's a guy on second. I'm on first. And I'm thinking, man, we just lost the state championship. And I'm mad. So I'm kind of running hard. And I'm watching, and I look, and I see that the guy's losing the ball in the sun. I'm like, oh, crap. He might drop this thing. So I put my head down and ran just in case he dropped it. And sure enough, he did. And I came around and scored, and we won. And it was just one of those things where, like, you feel so dejected because you feel like you had just lost the game. And then, 10 seconds later, probably a little more than 10 seconds, but we'd won.
Yeah.
So that's good research on that. That was a super cool moment for sure.
So you mentioned Coach Myers. Talk about your head coaches. So you were recruited by Coach Tanner, I would assume, and Coach Holbrook.
Yeah.
You commit to South Carolina. Coach Tanner takes the AD job. Did you waver at all on your commitment with that news, or was it, I'm going to South Carolina no matter what with my relationship with Coach Holbrook and Coach Myers? Yeah.
So to answer your question, no, it didn't, waver at all. I probably had the best relationship with, as far as consistent communication, like during the recruiting process with Coach Holbrook. And I feel like there was like a little bit of an inkling that might happen at some point. And then the opportunity to play for Coach Myers was, something I was really excited about. So I was pretty fired up.
Did you feel any sort of like pressure coming into South Carolina? Because you mentioned it, 2010 national championship, 2011 national championship, 2012 runner-up in the national championship, and now you're there as a freshman. Did you feel pressure, or was it more of a exciting opportunity for you?
Definitely more of an exciting opportunity and excited to be a part of it. I feel like, I had a decent mindset coming into it, just knowing that this was going to be a super new experience, and I was going to be around a lot of guys who did it at a high level. And so I think you realize, like, I looked up to you guys so much my freshman year, and, the classes above us, like, Webb and Belch and the Sullivans. Like, I just thought it was such a cool opportunity to play with guys that had won at that level and did what they did. And then I would say right around like opening day is when the nerves kind of kicked in, like, oh my God, this is really happening. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those veteran guys. You were thrust into an incredible opportunity as a true freshman. You were freshman All-SEC, freshman All-American. You ended up, I think, starting 11 games. How much did you lean on guys like you mentioned, Belcher, Webb, Adam Westmoreland, Colby Holmes, Jordan Montgomery, who kind of came on the scene the year before? That's a pretty good group of guys to be able to lean on when you – as a freshman, you really have no idea what you're doing until you do it.
Yeah. All those guys were awesome. Like kind of thinking back to that year, the pitchers were super tight. Like I felt like, everybody ragged on each other and, made fun of each other. And I certainly got made fun of a little bit for being like that gangly, awkward freshman. I think they called me Bambi, which was tough.
We had Gumby the year before, so Gumby and Bambi.
But at the same time, like all of them were so, even though, we're all kind of competing for spots and trying to have a role, and there was a lot of good lefties on the team, I felt like everybody was trying to pick each other up and help each other. And I don't think I could have been around a better group of older guys.
Yeah. Did you have any idea or any inkling through the recruiting process or your senior year that you'd have a chance to contribute as early as you did? Or was it, just go in, compete, and hope for the best?
Yeah. I didn't. I didn't know what to expect. I think some good advice I got from Ryan Morris was he's like, the freshman class pretty much every year, he said, when I coached, a third of the guys would show up and they would be, they'd be talented, they'd have the right mindset, and you would kind of know that they'd be in the mix to maybe earn some time. There'd be a third of the guys who were just way too green and needed to develop, and you kind of knew that it was going to take a year for them to sort of be in that space. And then there's a third of the guys who are kind of in the middle, and based on kind of how they spend that time developing, they could kind of earn their way, to either side. And I kind of treated it like I was going to be in that middle ground and just, try to do everything right and see what happened. And it just kind of worked out that I think a lot of the stuff that I knew how to do, whether it was like holding runners or, working quickly or getting ahead in the count, like a lot of stuff that Coach Myers thought was really important. So I think that got me a little bit of an edge early on as far as opportunities.
And you can probably accredit a lot of that to your high school coaching, like getting you prepared to pitch at that level. If you can't hold runners for Coach Myers, you can't pitch. I mean, he was so adamant about, your times to the plate, holding runners. So shout out to your high school coaches for teaching you those things, because, at that level, you got to find a way to differentiate yourself, which we'll get into that later, how incredible you were at holding runners on. But I want to pick out one start from that freshman year, your freshman year, that sticks out to me. At LSU. Obviously, I caught that game. Incredible. You end up going 7 scoreless innings. I mean, that team had Alex Bregman, Jacoby Jones, Andrew Stevenson, Mason Katz, Ray Frimes, who I think hit like 450 that year. What do you remember from that start? Because I'm thinking there's a true freshman on the mound. The series was tied 1-1. This was kind of the rubber match. We got a true freshman that we're at Alex Box Stadium, which is insane. What do you remember from that start?
Yeah, so the series up until that point, like you said, was so back and forth, and it was just honestly just awesome. But I think I kind of fed off of you guys. Like, y'all enjoyed playing in that stadium, in that environment. I mean, it was so loud. It was like you couldn't even hear.
Yeah.
But watching kind of the way that you guys like used the energy in the stadium and like used that stage to kind of like treat it as something you enjoyed, and it was like a privilege to play there, that helped me feel, I think, a little bit less nervous. But there was definitely some nerves there. And I remember just thinking, if I get them to put the ball in play, we've got an awesome defense behind us. And like the work that you and Coach Myers did to know the hitters, felt like throwing on Sunday was kind of a good thing, because you'd seen them in 2 games previous, and like you guys kind of knew how to pitch these guys. And so when you were putting fingers down, it was kind of just like, all right, if I throw it to this spot, these guys know what they're doing. But it felt like every time I threw it in there, I was snapping my head around and watching Tanner English or just somebody just track down a ball at the warning track. I mean, they must have hit 10 to 12 balls to the track that game.
I was about to give a shout out to Tanner, because he was always incredible in center field, but that game sticks out to me where he was just running down everything.
I mean, and so, I got him to hit it to the big part of the ballpark. I think Bregman hit one that was like over the foul pole so high. I thought it was fair, but they called it foul. That was a home. I mean, they teed off on a few, but our defense played great, and you guys found a way to scratch runs, and we won. And so it was a cool moment for me to be on the bump for that. But it was just like, in the middle of the field, throwing the ball, they're hitting everything, but just guys are making awesome plays left and right. It was super cool.
I'm sure you remember the bus ride to the airport. We were all singing Calling Baton Rouge and dance. I have a terrible memory. I vividly remember that trip. It was my favorite road trip we ever went on. But the previous week, so you won SEC Freshman of the Week for that performance. The previous week, you also won SEC Freshman of the Week. You threw 8 shutout innings against Kentucky. Was this kind of the point of the season where you kind of realized, I can pitch pretty well at this level, even as a true freshman?
I've got a pretty bad memory too.
I'm right there with you.
But I do remember kind of like that point in the season, getting a little bit of confidence. Just because it's such a tough league to pitch in. And, as a freshman, it's one of those things where you felt like if you had a bad outing that maybe you weren't going to get that next opportunity. So stringing a couple good ones together kind of, I think, let me relax a little bit and settle in for sure.
And you started that season more of a midweek guy. Do you think getting those opportunities in the midweek to start and kind of get your feet wet and then you transition into the Sunday role helped you get ready for those big moments at LSU, Kentucky, the Georgias, the Floridas, get ready for those starts?
I think so, for sure. Looking back, I was just excited to like put the uniform on and pitch.
Right.
You obviously want to pitch in the big games on the weekends, even early on, but I definitely think like being a starter at that point in my career, I felt way more comfort than, the few times that I came out of the bullpen on the weekends. And so I did like that I got to stay in that role and then sort of earn the Sunday spot.
Yeah. And then, we get through the regular season, we get to your first postseason, get through the regionals. We're celebrating our regional win. I'm not sure if you remember this. We were all celebrating as a team. North Carolina is playing Florida Atlantic, and they're down like 11-1 in the regional final. And we're all kind of just looking at each other like, guys, we're going to get to host a super regional against Florida Atlantic. No disrespect to Florida Atlantic. We felt pretty good with our chances. UNC was the number 1 national seed at the time.
Yeah.
UNC ends up storming back, winning 12-11, and we go up to North Carolina. It was an awesome series up in North Carolina. We were just one game short of going back to Omaha for the 4th straight year. Talk about your first postseason experience at not only at Founders Park, but getting to go up to Chapel Hill. Yeah,
that was crazy. We went from being really excited to like reality setting in, like, okay, this is probably the way it was supposed to play out.
Yeah, and it's not like we were like thinking we were done, thinking we had to go play North Carolina. It was just a lot easier path when you get to play at home against not the number 1 national seed.
No doubt. Yeah. Especially on the heels of everything that you guys had experienced the years prior and like the crowd and the fans that we have. I mean, it is a huge advantage for us to be playing in Founders Park. But it was that was it was like the air was let out of the balloon a little bit, but then you sort of just kind of refocus. And I was really excited to pitch in that series. They had such a good team.
That's such a good team.
And I got, again, the benefit of pitching in that 3rd game, got to watch a lot of baseball and kind of, take in what they were trying to do. And then we had like the rain delays. I feel like we were there for a week before
2 postponements. Yeah, the first game got delayed. And then I think we evened the series up when Gumby shut them out. And then I think we had a delay the next day and ended up finishing on Tuesday or something. Yeah.
I remember that after that delay, I think I went and watched a lot of Gumby's outing just to try to be like, all right, I'm going to channel Gumby for this game if we're going to try to beat these guys. And unfortunately I didn't, but I think kind of maybe I kept us close enough to kind of hang around after a few innings. And then that was a tough loss there at the end, but the whole experience was awesome. And it was electric in Chapel Hill too.
Yeah. It was a great series. We were so close. Yeah. And then, you parlay a really good freshman year, All-American freshman year, into another really good sophomore year. Had a 2.86 ERA. My sophomore year, your junior year, at one point, I think we were like 16-0 to start the season. We were the number 1 team in the country. That team was probably one of my favorite teams of my 3 years here. Okay. What was something that you learned or took from your freshman season and carried over into your sophomore year? Did the game just slow down for you some, or was it kind of just business as usual?
I think a little bit of that. I think freshman year was so much just about like going out there and just, surviving to an extent and just trying to like keep us in a position to win that 3rd game. Sophomore year was where like, you feel comfortable that you're going to have a role. So you also want to kind of develop a little bit more and work on some stuff. And I had kind of the privilege of, my 2nd year with, guys like Gumby, and I got to kind of watch them develop. So there was probably more of an element of that. And then it was also, excuse me, my first year not being a freshman.
Yeah.
So like having that class that came in after me, which had some really talented guys, and kind of trying to sort of take a lot of the lessons that we learned from, guys like Belch and Pat Sullivan and Westy and Colby and all those guys, and try to make sure that those guys understood it, I felt like was kind of important, because we were slowly losing that group of guys that had won, a national championship. So I remember it being kind of an interesting year where we had like still some older guys that had done it, a lot of talented guys kind of in their, junior year and some sophomores, and then this like green group of freshmen. It was a really good mixture of guys.
Yeah, it's always fun to see the freshman class come in and see how they're going to gel with the team, what kind of personalities they have. And, we had so much fun on that team. Who were some of the guys in your class, your freshman class? Because, pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal, one of the coolest things was getting to go through your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior years all together as a group. You rarely had guys transfer in and out that much. Who were some of the guys that you were closest with in your recruiting class that got to go through, those stages together?
Yeah, so Max Schrock was one of my roommates my freshman year that, I played with him throughout the 3 years that I was there. We both left our junior year. And he was a trip. I mean, we called him King Max because he's, little guy, stocky, but just like big personality, like confidence, almost a cockiness about him at times, but just, an awesome player, an awesome friend. Had a lot of good memories with him. And he was one that I think kind of like me, like we just really looked up to our older guys. And so we followed you guys around everywhere you went. And I just remember, we'd be on the couch and, we would hear that you guys were going to do something. And I'd look over at Max and be like, are we going? Like, yes. And then, Kurt Britt was a guy who, for my first 2 years at Carolina, like, really leaned on him. And I feel like we tried to kind of make each other better, and was just a hilarious dude and is still a great friend today. I'll tell you a cool story because I'm not sure everybody would remember this, that we had Ryan Ripken on the team my freshman year. Yeah. So head down to college, right? That whole, move in freshman year experience. I got there. I guess I was the first one in my room. None of my other roommates were there. I knew there were baseball guys across the hall. So I dropped my bag off and I go knock on the door across the hall, and Cal Ripken Jr. opens the door, and I'm like, holy crap. And
I guess the Orioles are probably like one of the closest teams to where you grew up. So that was probably.
I mean, he's, it needs no introduction, an absolute legend, but yeah, they're the closest big league team to where I grew up. And so I had, his baseball cards and all this. And it was just like that. It was just such a cool moment. He was so nice. And he, was like offering to like help me move stuff, just, one of those really cool moments where you meet somebody you idolized. But Rip was a super cool guy. George Iskandarian, who stayed with us for maybe couple years, that I'm still close with. A lot of the guys, Weber Pike stuck it out and he was with us the whole time. And, but I feel like our class, we had probably more guys like transfer in and out than y'all's did.
Than most, yeah.
But yeah, we just had an awesome crew.
Yeah, I like I said, I love that team. We had a lot of fun together. We ended up getting a number 1 seed, getting to host a regional. Kind of ran out of steam at the end. We ended up losing to Maryland, and it probably was a little different. That loss crushed me because I thought we had a really good team that had a chance to go far into the postseason again. It was my last year at Carolina. Do you feel the same way that team maybe left a little bit something on the table? Because that was kind of I'm like, man, we should not have lost this series.
Yeah, it was extremely disappointing. And I did not pitch well in that series. And so I left that summer, pretty upset with kind of how the year played out because, to your point, how well we started out, and, you can point to like the injury bug that got us later in the year and all that stuff. But there was, that one definitely left a bad taste in your mouth heading home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get into your junior year. You're kind of the older veteran on the staff now. Couple of firsts that year for you. One, you got your first career save against Georgia, and two, you threw a complete game shutout with 12 strikeouts, career high 12 strikeouts against Vanderbilt, which is a top 2 or 3 program in the country. I don't know if you remember those, but talk about the difference between coming out of the bullpen versus starting 95% of your career, and then also that incredible performance against Vanderbilt where you, no offense, you're not a huge strikeout guy. You're not throwing 100, getting 12 strikeouts against a team like Vanderbilt.
Yeah, so the Georgia save was kind of crazy. Normally I did not get super pumped up when I would pitch. I'd stay kind of relaxed and just try to get into a groove once you get started. But forever, I can't even remember how I ended up down there in the bullpen, to be honest with you. But I just remember like really wanting the ball and like getting like excited to go in there. And so that was a super fun moment for me to like experience something new and do it at that level, to kind of be like, okay, like a lefty thrown in the mid 80s can go, close a game out. Vandy it was one of those where like we were kind of scuffling a little bit. And I think it was like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. And so Vince Fiore started Thursday and gave us like a really good start. And I watched some of the stuff that he was doing. And so that gave me like a little bit of confidence coming into the game. Holbrook came up to me before the game and was like, I'm going to give you the ball and I want you to give it back to me when it's over. And he'd never said any, like he never put any like, pressure on the pitchers, like he, would, if anything, give you like a little pat on the butt from time to time. But he let Coach Myers drive a lot of that. But like when he said that, I was like, okay, like, dang. Yeah. So that got me fired up. And I just remember it being one of those days where kind of, everything was going your way. My breaking ball was, in the zone and out of the zone when I wanted it to be. And I felt like even when I missed a spot, they'd hit it to somebody. And it just ended up being one of those days where you have a really great night out there. Yeah.
It was a bit of a tough year as a team that year. Ended up missing the postseason. Yeah. Individually, though, another great season for you. Ended up getting drafted in the 6th round by the Rockies. Looking back on your 3-year career as a Gamecock, how would you describe it? Because for me, obviously getting to catch you for 2 years, consistent and dependable. That's kind of how I viewed you. You always knew what you were going to get. 6, 7 innings, three runs or less. How would you describe your 3-year career at Carolina?
I think that's a good way to kind of describe like my mindset for what I was trying to do when I went out there. I really tried to embrace, I wanted to throw as many innings as possible, save our bullpen as much as possible, and, win as many games as we could. But as far as just kind of like to sum it up, I just felt like I was just a product of all of the great things that we had going on in our program at the time. Like I like looking back, like between the coaches that we had and the guys in the locker room, like, getting to throw to you was freaking awesome. Like it was just, I felt really lucky that I ended up at South Carolina. Because I think that I was one of those guys where, I didn't do a whole lot of stuff that was going to jump off the charts. And so to have that opportunity at the next level, I kind of had to prove that I could do it with the stuff that I had. And I think that the people around me, through like Coach Myers and all the guys and just given that opportunity to kind of grow into that Friday night starter role in the SEC, just felt super lucky, man. Yeah. It was awesome. It was so much fun.
You mentioned Coach Myers. Talk a little bit about what he meant and what Coach Holbrook meant to you as a baseball player and your development, because they were your coaches for all 3 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Coach Myers had known me since I was in middle school. So, like, growing up in that area, like everybody knew who Coach Myers was, and that Old Dominion baseball program was legit. And I knew a lot about him because Ryan Morris, who was my high school coach, coached with Coach Myers. He was his recruiter at Old Dominion. So just had a ton of respect for him, had heard from so many guys, knew that he produced big leaguers, didn't even really know that much about his background at South Carolina, but just really respected him. And the time that he put into me, during my time there, I think was, he probably had the biggest impact of anybody on me in my career, as from a pitching standpoint, a mindset standpoint, like the stuff that he just drilled into us. I think it's still, just as applicable in the game right now as it was, back before he was coaching me and during my time at South Carolina. So as a coach and as a person, I mean, that dude means the world to me. Yeah. Holbrook, he's just the freaking man for giving me a scholarship when I was throwing like 83 miles an hour as a sophomore in high school. I think he was just like, this kid's tall and he's got a good changeup. Maybe he'll figure it out. Okay, well, let's give him an opportunity. And, him and I have stayed tight, and I just think the world of him as a person. And I know how much, his time at South Carolina meant to him and his family, but he changed a lot of our lives by giving us that opportunity to play for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, both two really important people that I'm really grateful for.
Two of our absolute favorites. And, you know, you mentioned the changeup. That kind of leads me into my next question. Another two things I think about when I think about Jack Wynkoop, your pickoff move and your changeup. You know, we talked earlier, you're not a guy that's going to strike out 14 a game. You're going to have action on the bases. You're going to have to control the running game, and you were incredible. I think I saw your junior year, you gave up 1 stolen base and 2 stolen base attempts, 1 for 2. That was it. How much pride did you take in controlling the running game, and how intentional did you have to be on making sure you were, you know, elite at that part of pitching?
Yeah, a ton. Yeah. I spent a ton of time on it. It started when I was, you know, probably 12 years old. I had a pitching coach. His name was Gary Lavelle. He pitched in the big leagues, and he was like kind of a rival coach in high school, but I'd seen him for pitching lessons forever. But he had an awesome pickoff move, and he showed it to me, and he really drilled into me early on just how much of an advantage it was being left-handed, you know, being able to hold runners. And the way that I pitched, like pitching to contact, trying to get the ball on the ground, like not overpowering people, naturally, you know, I knew from a younger age, like that was going to lead to more guys getting on base. And so I thought that if I didn't do that extremely well, I had no chance of pitching at the higher levels. Mm-hmm. And so I did take a lot of pride in it. And I think that it saved me countless runs and probably, you know, a lot of wins for our team just by being able to keep that guy on first. And, you know, letting the next guy, you know, if he got a hit or whatever, now it's first and second, or not walking people and, you know, just limiting damage. I think that's a very undervalued and underappreciated part of pitching. Mm-hmm. And I just think there's so many saved runs in there for the guys that can do it well. So I think,
and to your point, guys are just trying to throw as hard as humanly possible now. They pick their leg. I mean, that you turn a single into a double that way. So it was always, as a catcher, I love when you pitched because I knew nobody was going to run. It was awesome. So you had an incredible career at South Carolina. You get drafted by the Rockies in the 6th round, end up playing, I think, 7 years professionally, get up to AAA. Very consistent in pro ball. What was the major difference or a couple differences you saw between college baseball and pro baseball, and how quickly did you see those differences?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the first one that I immediately saw was the catching and the being able to call a game and the being able to throw guys out. So you talk about that reason that only 2 guys ran. You had a lot to do with that as well during my time with you. But overall, like, so you know this because you prepared with him, but Coach Myers was so prepared for every game. He had such a great game plan, and he knew his guys so well that I rarely shook in college. And so, like, that for me was awesome because, like, I knew that when that sign went down, the thought and the process that went into it, so you could almost blindly trust it and just treat it like a video game, right? Yeah. Like, I'm just like going to execute this pitch and this pitch and this pitch. No thought to it. I had to learn how to watch what the hitter was doing and how to see things, how to have conviction in myself, what I wanted to throw, because I started my career just, you know, still kind of blindly doing and realizing that sometimes the guy behind the plate did not do the same preparation work that you and Coach Myers did. So that was a big one. The second biggest hurdle was like learning to play for yourself versus kind of just being a part of the team and just wanting to do it for your school and the guys around you. I mean, it's your career, right? Like, you're there to get to the big leagues. Like, you're there to put up as good of a performance as you possibly can and grow as a player. That took some adjusting too, but it was so fun, man. It was such a cool time to kind of be, you know, a little bit selfish and focus on being, you know, the best player that you can be and trying to like live out that dream. So it was fun.
And, you know, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, you would have made the big leagues if not for injury. Talk about how difficult the injuries were towards the end of your career with the hip and the back, and you made it so close, but I really think those injuries are the only reason you didn't have a long career in the big leagues. You had, like I said, I think you had just over a 4 ERA in the Rockies organization, which includes a lot of really good hitters, Parks. And it's something they could have used up in Colorado, guys that could keep the ball in the yard. Talk about how tough that was mentally and physically, just going through that grind of it's every kid's dreams to play in the big leagues, and you were so close, and you fought through those injuries for a long time.
Yeah, it was tough. The last one was really tough just because I was there and like, you know, traveling around and kind of felt like I was like right on the cusp of, you know, competing. But, you know, throughout kind of like the middle of my career, like with the hip stuff and having surgery and all that, like when I was in AA, which is like a pretty critical point, it was definitely a mental grind because it was kind of the first time that, you know, it really challenged you to like how badly you wanted to keep doing it and whether you thought you could do it. And so I think the big thing that kind of saved me, honestly, was when we had the COVID year, which sucked because the game was taken away from me for a year, and it really makes you realize how bad you want to go out and compete and play the game. So I felt like I used that year really well to fix a lot of the stuff that I'd kind of lost maybe due to the injuries to an extent, and kind of reinvented some things. And just having that last year in 2021 where I played at, you know, a really high level and had the opportunity to go travel around in the big leagues a little bit, I think kind of I proved to myself that I felt like I belonged, which was a big mental hurdle for me. So as much as it sucked getting hurt and that kind of being it, I feel pretty at peace with like how it all happened, and I was just super grateful for the experience.
Who were some of the either teammates or coaches throughout your 7 years professionally that you really connected with throughout your journey? Some of your closest friends in your professional career?
Yeah, so coach-wise, you played against him, Warren Schaefer. Remember our manager in AA? I had him, you know, from low A all the way up to AAA, and he went in. I think he went into the big leagues like right after I left the Rockies. But he was just such an incredible human and believed so much in his guys, and was just such a selfless, awesome person and coach, and felt like he was a big part of kind of what helped me get through some of those tougher times. So really grateful for him, still tight with him. You played against Dom Nunez, who was another catcher, right? Lefty, a ton of pop. He was really good back there. And he, you know, took the time to like buy into his pitchers' careers as well. Like he felt responsible for your numbers, you know? And I think you're that kind of that way too with your guys. So that meant a lot to me. Matt Pierpont, do you remember him? Righty closer. So he threw like 88, but he threw a cutter and a changeup, and that kind of taught me. And watching him absolutely carve at the higher levels of the minor leagues kind of gave me some confidence. And I ended up officiating his wedding, which was awesome. I did not do awesome, but it was an awesome experience. Forgot to tell everybody that they could be seated. So we're like going through the vows, and everybody's still standing, and I look at him like, oh crap.
Sit down.
His grandma came up to me after and was like, my feet hurt so bad. I got off on a tangent there. But anyways, like, you know, one of my best friends, another guy, Parker French, played at Texas, and, you know, was, you know, one of my groomsmen in my wedding. Just like similarly to college, like you have those guys that you really connect with, and you help each other through things. You pull for each other, and dude, now we all have families, and it's just it's a cool phase. But yeah, I appreciate you asking about that. It was a special time.
And so you retired from playing in 2021, starting a family here in Columbia. You're not from here. Miss Jessica's not from here. What made you guys decide you wanted to – sorry, Miss Jessica, for calling you that. What made you guys decide you wanted to stay here in Columbia and raise a family?
Yeah, the people, you know, like it felt like home after a while. You know, we were coming back here in the off seasons and training, and I knew you grew up here, so, you know, it's always been home, but like this is a really special place, and the people around here, like, you know, just it's super special. It means a lot to me and my family. I met Jessica here, and then, you know, it turned out to be a good opportunity to grow professionally in kind of that next phase, and so all of that lining up, you know, just it makes me happy to feel like I'm home. Yeah.
And throughout my career, you're probably one of, if not the most fun-loving and nice guys I've ever met. I remember we lived at Carolina Walk with Gumby, and on your door there was a Virginia is for Lovers flag and a Dr. Dre album cover. I think that sums you up pretty well.
It up, dude. Yeah, for sure.
You have an incredible family and your parents. Do you think that's kind of where your personality comes from? And has it always been that way? Just kind of that fun-loving, go with the flow type of lifestyle?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Definitely. So yeah, my dad is an absolute trip, and he's my best friend and my hero. I look up to him a lot. My mom is, an incredible human being, and I just had the greatest examples as parents. And they're the kind of people, like, when it comes to, like, getting their business done and, like, being, doing things the right way and doing things a certain way, they're serious, but they love to have fun. And I think that kind of was, left on me as a child and was very impressionable. And yeah, dude, it's, we've
shout
had
out JC. He's the best.
Yeah, shout out to JC, but we've had a lot of good times together.
Yeah.
And this place is such a fun place to go to school.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of thinking back now to the Carolina Walk days. We can't tell all those stories on here, but there was a lot of fun.
I know you love to stay involved with the university, in particular the baseball program. I saw you went and spoke to them a couple weeks back. How much do you enjoy, and how cool is it that you are here local and so many of your former teammates and your parents come down, just staying close to the university and still staying involved?
Yeah, it's important. It was a big part of our identity too. I feel like, like when we were coming through here. And so to feel like you have a home to come back to, and I'm sure you feel this way too, a little bit of a responsibility to help support, not only the athletes that are, coming after you, but the school in general. It's just been really nice to see kind of, the community of people, whether it's, staff, athletic department, just all over the map. Having a home to come back to is super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are some of your baseball heroes growing up, or guys that maybe you modeled your pitching style after and had a big impression on you through your baseball career?
Yeah, so I loved Kershaw, which is kind of, he's older than us, but like he just got into the big leagues so young that I feel like, we watched it. And I wasn't a huge like baseball junkie growing up. Like surfing was probably, if you would ask me what my favorite thing to do was, I would have told you it was surfing. But he was one that, I paid attention when he pitched. I didn't throw anything like him, but the way that he competed, the way that he held runners pretty well. He was a really good one. Andy Pettit for the Yankees was a guy that, I kind of paid attention to growing up. But yeah, those were probably the two big ones.
Well, you took the next question out of my mouth, your love and passion for surfing. Talk about where that started, who influenced you to, you still, anytime we're down by the beach or Charleston, when we play in our golf tournament, you don't come to breakfast, you go surf.
Yeah.
So talk about your love for surfing and where that passion started.
Yeah, so I was born in Venice, California. My mom and dad both grew up in Virginia Beach and Norfolk, Virginia, and decided to move out to California. And so growing up there, the surf's a lot better on the West Coast, and it was something I learned to do and something I did with my dad all the time, and kept it going. And in Virginia Beach, we'd go on surf trips and stuff, and I had some cool opportunities to travel and surf in some really cool places, and it's just like a nice kind of escape for me to get out and enjoy it. And yeah, it's just for anybody that hasn't surfed, I would highly recommend it.
Never been. And
dude, we got to go. We'll get you out there for sure.
So you pitched in obviously some huge games in your Carolina career. Give me 2 or 3 some of your favorite moments from Founders Park, Ray Tanner Field now, and also your favorite road trip you ever went on.
Okay. Favorite moments. So that Vandy game was pretty fun. My favorite moment was, I don't even know if I was involved in this. Maybe I was. I think I pitched in that Tennessee series where we walked them off twice in the same game. I don't think I pitched well in either game, by the way. But just being a part of that, and you hit was it a grand slam to win the second one? So that was probably like my favorite moment, just witnessing 2 walk-offs in one day, the fans like just going insane. And then afterwards, we're all at my house, like all of us packed into a room like smaller than this, and it comes on ESPN Top Plays, number 1. Yeah. And I'm standing right next to you. And did Jordan Gore hit the first one? And Jordan Gore's on the other side of me. And it was just like such a cool moment. I'd never seen anything like that before. I never experienced anything like that the rest of my career. That was super special. I know that was cool for you too.
It was awesome. And your favorite road trip you ever went on?
Road trip. Okay, LSU was awesome. Just the experience and the place and how loud the stadium was, and even the little kids. I mean, they're like, I'm not going to say what they were doing to us when the bus rode by, but we're like, oh my gosh, this place is crazy. That was cool. Mississippi State, they got on you when you were playing, but I remember like the next day after, when we were packing up, they brought all this barbecue to the bus, and they were the nicest, kindest people, and that park was cool. Kentucky was a terrible place to play. I didn't like it.
I was about to say,
great program.
No
what they're doing is
top list.
But we had so much fun. Do you remember, like in that hotel that we stayed at, like all the guys got together?
I never had fun in Kentucky. I don't think I ever won a game there.
No, we didn't win, but that was, you asked road trip. Yeah. That was kind of like my, on the bus and all that. Like we had some funny memories there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all kind of blends together.
Yeah.
Though.
So I'll give you a quick minute to pitch kind of your business that you're in now. What are some traits or skills that you learned throughout your baseball career that are translating into what you're doing now with wealth management at Merrill Lynch?
Yeah, so I think the people element, right? Like I've always been a people person, and love being a part of a team, and so kind of finding my way within this team that I operate within has been super special. And I feel like, what they accomplished long before I got there, but what we're continuing to work towards to do it at the highest level and be one of the, most recognized teams in the United States is pretty special. But it's like the same stuff I tell young athletes and stuff, like what makes you who you are and what makes you successful as an athlete or a person is going to translate into that next career. And so I'm just, it's a totally different deal from baseball, right? But, just kind of approaching it with that same mindset of always trying to grow and get better and be a good teammate, I think has been a good start for me.
Well, if anybody needs a wealth manager, I recommend Jack Wynkoop. Outside of surfing, what are some of your hobbies, things you like to do? Obviously, you're a girl dad now, spending time with them. Any other hobbies really that you would say you're interested in? Yeah,
so family time this year, I feel like, it's my daughter's going to be 1 next month, and I feel like, you just can't get enough of it. So, watching her grow has been the coolest thing ever. My in-laws moved to Lake Murray, not too far from you. And so that's been a cool place to explore, getting out on the water and fishing, and been trying to play a little golf when I can. I'm terrible. Like we play in that tournament every year, and I'm probably the worst one in there. But yeah, that's probably what I'm up to if I'm not, working or hanging out with my family.
Yeah. Well, man, that's all I got for you. You had an incredible career. Obviously, you're one of my very best friends, so I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Thanks, G. You're the man. Thanks for having me.
You got it. That'll do it for today's episode. I'll see you guys next week.